Welcome students. This session is for MA final year English Literature. Paper is A, that is New Literatures in English. In this session we'll be doing the poem Journey to the Interior by Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood was born on November 18, 1939, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Let's have a look at life and works of this famous Canadian author. Atwood was born in Ottawa and earned her BA from Victoria College at the University of Toronto and MA from Radcliffe College in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Margaret Atwood discovered her interest in nature and natural phenomena at a very early age due to the site of her father's research, which was often the woods in the provinces of Ontario and Quebec, where the family spent its summers. So Atwood's attraction and interest in nature was quite early in her age because her father was researching in the woods of Ontario and Quebec. Of the other major influences on Atwood's literary career was the work of romantic poet William Blake, whom she took an interest in through her teacher, the renowned critic and literary scholar Northrop Fryer. At the same time, she was doing undergraduate work at the University of Toronto. So she was quite influenced by this romantic poet William Blake, and at the time when she was studying at the University of Toronto. She first came into public attention as a poet in 1960 with her collection Double Persephone, that was in 1961, and she was winner of E.J. Pratt Medal for this. And her work, The Surgical Game, which was in 1964, and this made her winner of Governor General's Award. She is regarded as one of Canada's finest living writers. Margaret Atwood is a poet, novelist, story writer, essayist, and environmental activist. So she has a variety of things that she is doing. She's a poet and she's a novelist and essayist, as well as she's also connected to environment activities. Her books have received critical acclaim in the United States, Europe, and her native Canada, and she has received numerous literary awards, including Booker Prize, the Arthur C. Clarke Award, and the Governor General's Award twice. So she is read in various countries, and she has received critical acclaim in the United States and Europe, and even her own country, Canada. And these prestigious awards she had in her life. Atwood's critical popularity is matched by her popularity with readers. Her books are regularly bestsellers, and novels have been adapted into popular movies and television series. So she is quite popular with the readers, and her books are bestsellers, and even her novels, they have been adapted into popular movies and television series. But in our course, we have just one poem by Atwood, out of which we will be able to look into her work quite closely. Before we start with the poem, let's have a look at her poetic style. Journey to the Interior, and this is the name of the poem that you have in your course, is a subtle, many-layered poem with nuances that may be contradictory and therefore wide open to multiple interpretations. So the poem is quite a subtle one, and it is open for multiple interpretations. There cannot be just one interpretation to the poem. It has layers of meaning involved. The dreamlike, surreal mood is created by pensive, reflective, musing tone, at times morbid or melancholic. The tone of the poem is quite pensive, it's quite thoughtful. She's reflecting on something, and a surrealistic mood is created, and sometimes readers feel that there is an element of death and sadness involved in it. Written in postmodern style with multiple allusions and disparate images, it communicates the lateral thinking rather than logical sequential process. So thinking which is presented in this poem is not linear or quite conventional. Rather, it's a lateral thinking. It is in multiple directions, and the images are also quite disparate, and even the allusions, the hints to various things are multiple. The free verse with few euphonic or melodious words evokes somber responses. So the poem is written in free verse, and there are some music, little bit of music or melodious words are there, but basically we can see that the poem invokes a very serious sort of a response from readers. The intimate conversational voice of a persona seductively engages the responder inclusively with involvement and identification. The tone of this poem, the voice which is used, that is in the beginning in the first person and the second person pronouns, it is a conversational tone which is used, and with this tone, the readers, they get included in it, and they get involved in this poem, and there is an identification which they can create between what the writer is saying and according to their own experiences. As the subject is ruminative, the approach is intensely subjective, private, personal, and intimate. Because she's ruminating, she's reflecting, she's thinking about something, and this makes the subject of this poem quite subjective, because she's writing from her own experience, and it's quite private and personal and intimate, because this we can see by the language which she's using, especially first and second person pronouns. So this is the words or the choice of subject and the language that she's using. We'll be experiencing them, all these things, as we deal with the poem. Now let us have a look at the text. Atwood writes, "There are similarities I notice at the hills, which the eyes make flat as a wall, welded together, open as I move, to let me through, become endless as prairies." So right from the first line, we come to know that poet is talking about internal journey, which is contrasted to the external journeys, but somewhere we know that there are similarities. That means same theories apply to the internal journey as it applies to external journey, to an external environment. And right from the beginning, we come to know that the poet says that the hill which the eyes make flat as a wall, welded together, open as I move. So this scene, this internal journey, it can be known only when the wall is broken. This wall, when it's broken on the personal level, which is welded together, and when one decides to take upon this internal journey, it lets one through and becomes endless as prairies. So here Atwood is using a metaphor of prairie. Prairie means that when one takes up this internal journey, there are no obstacles or guidelines in life. It's an open expanse of land where one has a choice that where one wants to go on that piece of land. So which direction a person is going to take, that person is free to decide. But the trees grow spinely, have their roots often in swamps. But this is a poor country, that a cliff is not known, as rough except by hand, and is therefore inaccessible. Atwood says that when one takes up this internal journey, it is not easy and open as prairies. Rather, one gets to know oneself, what one really is. It's very difficult, and the images of difficulty that she gives is the spiny trees, which have their roots in swamps, and this is a poor country. And poor country here denotes that this internal journey is not an easygoing thing. And one feels that maybe as one proceeds in this internal journey, it might improve with travel. Then she talks about the cliff that is not known as rough except by hand, which means that one really has to experience this internal journey by oneself, and it's quite a personal experience, and one needs to know it by one's own experience, by one's own hand, at a very base level, in order to understand what one really is and is therefore inaccessible. So basically she wants to say that this journey of insight is quite difficult and endless task. Mostly that travel is not the easy going. From point to point, a dotted line on a map, location plotted on a square surface. But wishes to say over here that the journey within is not easy as going from one point to the other point like a dotted line on a map. And this somewhere is quite similar to the idea that human potential cannot be mapped from one point to the another, or rather one can say that science cannot explain human conditions. So there is no guidance as such that one can take upon this internal journey from one point to the another point, because it is endless and it's quite difficult. So it's not something which is located or plotted on a square surface. So this shows that the process of discovery of oneself is not easy. At that, I move surrounded by a tangle of branches, a net of air and alternate light and dark at all times, that there are no destinations apart from this. A poet here wishes to say that internal journey is not easy, and the process of self-discovery involves a lot of difficulties, which she gives in the images of a tangle of branches and a net of air. The light and dark is the happiness and joy at the same time, and we feel that Atwood is suggesting that when it comes to discovery of self, this journey does not have any fixed destination. So she says that at all times there are no destinations apart from this. So there are no fixed points, there are no fixed guidelines for taking up this internal journey, which is difficult as well as challenging, and it is entirely a personal experience which varies from person to person. If we wish to analyze these stanzas, we can say that to know oneself, who one really is perhaps a difficult and endless task. But this is the start of journey, so hopefully the country will improve with travel. We feel that this country or this travel, which might be taken up as an external journey or internal journey, because Atwood feels that same theory applies to both. So we feel that maybe this internal journey improves with travel. It is interesting that the cliffs cannot be seen for what they are, except at a very base level, except that one really experiences it from one's personal level. Destination is unknown except to be vague as a dotted line between points on a map. So this vagueness of this travel can be seen, that poet says that it is not a fixed route. It is as vague as a dot line which is there on the map. The endless light and dark would relate to both day and night, as well as emotional highs and lows. So when one takes this internal journey, there are a lot of emotional up and downs that one faces. When we start any internal search, we have little idea of what might be revealed, and again, it's a difficult journey to untangle. So it's quite tangled, and it's very difficult to really make it very simple and say that this is the experience of internal journey. It is quite unexpected for any person at what moment can be revealed to him. So we'll continue the rest of the poem in my next session. Thanks.